Hello, Martin.
Hi.
So
Wow. Was that you on the skateboard, Vijay?
I know, really. So here's the interesting thing. So when I sat down this morning, I'm like 4.5 hours in front of a computer, and the time has just flown. To those of you in our audience, thank you for staying with us for as long as you have. But I do want to sort of introduce Nathan Apodaca, who, of course, we all know by now, was a gentleman on his skateboard in, I think it was Ohio, actually, right? And, we chose to show this video because it's sort of uplifting. Everybody loves Fleetwood Mac. And a funny little inside story. My team changed the entire music for the conference on the platform after hearing Dreams and decided we're going to go with the whole classic rock genre. But it's sort of a very powerful story because here's this guy who works at a potato processing plant. I'm not even sure, was it Ohio or Idaho? I don't even remember. And his truck breaks down. And he surfs his skateboards to work, and he decides to do a TikTok video. And then he's not even sure he wants to post it, but he does, and he captures this cool, almost California vibe. And the next thing you know is, Fleetwood, the lead singer from Fleetwood Mac, is connecting with him and does an imitation video, as does the CEO of Ocean Spray. And all of a sudden he says people are writing him checks, sending him money via Venmo, and now he's got an agent because he's become an influencer. And of course, Ocean Spray gave him a truck with Ocean Spray in it. But I also want to sort of talks about sort of social media and the influence it has and how powerful it is globally. And it also introduces issues around TikTok. Obviously, we've had a huge political debate about the ownership of TikTok, and also ties it back into data privacy. Like, who owns the data? Who owns the code? So even if the US owns a piece of it, where does it actually sit? So we'll get back to that. But I want to sort of go back to the top of the day. And, I think we've all understood that this pandemic has been has had a dramatic impact, in many cases, not very positive on a lot of companies. But what has surprised me more than anything else is how well companies have pivoted. In all cases, it seems the story is invariably one about technology. But then I want to sort of ask you, Martin, what do you think about sort of the experience economy? Because you start thinking about Nordstrom's or even sort of the things that Latote was talking about, or the experience we have on United. These are all aspects of the experience economy. What do you think sort of how's this going to pan out in the future after pandemics, hopefully?
Well, I think it's really interesting because the whole idea of the experience economy is the physical experience of whatever, whether it's a cruise, whether it's your visit to the Nordstrom store, whether it's your drive somewhere. And of course, in the pandemic, we've suddenly discovered that those physical experiences aren't as available. And we need to find ways through technology to either kind of reproduce them or to enhance them, which is, again, I think what Nordstrom was trying to do. A number of the presenters kind of talked around how they've been leveraging various different digital platforms to kind of connect with customers in different ways. So I think it's going to create, what it is already creating, this sort of vast outpouring of innovation. And there's just a hell of a lot more to come. I obviously hope we don't have future pandemics, but you've got to plan for the worst and hope for the best.
Yeah, and it's really I think what you heard from a lot of the companies today, and obviously people hear different things depending on where they sit, but a lot of it that I heard was about some companies, like if you're in drug development, you have a lot of work around vaccine and therapeutic development for COVID-19 in particular. If you're a company like United or, Latote, of course, is struggling more than most of the people we had on stage today, but you look at Nordstrom's, you look at United, they have to get through the pandemic and they have to get to the other side. And obviously you have to pivot to where the customers are today and what they're looking for and try and provide them with an experience. And then you hope for this rapid acceleration when you come out, which is the accelerating through the curve sort of thing. How do you position yourself? And what are you seeing in all the writing that you do and the work you do about how companies are sort of investing now for a better future?
I mean, I think there are kind of two broad kind of themes that come through what I'm seeing. The first is, look, we are basically putting the pedal down on everything that we've been doing anyway. So we had these digital transformation strategies. Now we're, to use your racing metaphor, we are accelerating down the straight, and hopefully there will be kind of fewer curves ahead.
Yes.
But the second thing that's going on is, there is a lot of kind of optionality being built. So it's like, we don't really know, is it going to be, as in the discussion that we had with you, the software-driven drug discovery? We just don't know really when this pandemic is going to be over. So we need to create optionality and investment plans that allow us to see different scenarios and kind of pull back very quickly or pivot very quickly. And that's where, things like 3D manufacturing technology from Carbon is kind of hugely useful.
Yeah. And in fact, the other thing that I didn't think about earlier about optionality was sort of when you listen to Aurora and PACCAR, right? So there's the PACCAR perspective, because they're only in the trucking business. But if you're Aurora, they're trying to build an all-purpose software platform, which sort of de facto gives you the optionality. And they've chosen to go into trucking first because they see commercial viability earlier than in passenger cars, for example. And they also alluded to sort of the local delivery, which they're not working on, from what I can tell anyway right now. But there are companies like Nura who are focused on local grocery delivery and so on. So these software platforms do give you optionality in terms of how quickly you run experiments, and if the experiment is successful, sort of how you want to play in whatever sort of is revealed by that experiment in terms of, okay, this seems like a profitable avenue to go down. So I think these platforms do give you an incredible amount of optionality. The other thing I think we saw was some really innovative business models about, I think, adoption of virtual clinical trials, which is something that, they've been focused on for a very long time with a low adoption. I use the example of our university. We've been talking for 10 years about online learning, and we got more done in 2 weeks than we've gotten done in 10 years. So there's a lot of that goes on. The last thing I want to close with you on is sort of this future equilibrium. We'll see weaker companies fall by the wayside, unfortunately, and there may be more concentration. And the question is, what do you think the winners will have? Like, what will separate the winners from the losers if you go fast forward a couple of years when this is all behind us?
I think that's a really difficult question, a very big question. I mean, clearly things like rapid learning, the ability to kind of pivot, as I say, very quickly, modular, open, kind of agile underlying architectures, what Chet was just talking about. I mean, that is essential to kind of digital transformation success. But to be digitally fit for the future, if you don't have that, you're going to fail. And I would say third thing is like, really think about the data. It's that whole data discussion. I mean, one thing didn't come up with United, but is fascinating to me is kind of data is saving these airlines. I mean, yes. Literally, they are monetizing the data. They're raising loans against the value of their frequent flyer programs. I mean, yes. $6 billion in United's case. So you need to think there is money in data, but there is also kind of opportunities and risks, as you discussed with Lisa.
Yeah, and I sort of the broader interpretation of data is the intellectual property and the know-how that makes you valuable in the long run. It's what makes you different. With that, I want to close because you've given us, all of you in the audience, thank you for your attention. We really appreciate your support of ours. This was our first virtual event, and thank you to our sponsors who allowed us to put this on. And to all our speakers who took time out of their schedules to be here, and most of all to our community who continues to support us and have supported us since the day we launched. So thank you very much. We hope today was an informative day for you. When you exit, please complete the feedback form because the platform should prompt you with the feedback form. Thank you, Martin. Thank you to my team who sort of behind the scenes just helped us put this on in I think, a pretty high quality fashion. So again, thank you to the speakers, thank you to the sponsors. And thank you to all of you. And stay safe, everybody.